The last week of the college football regular season is here, and it is rivalry week. That's what the last week of the season is widely known as, rivalry week. And in college football, rivalry week is the most important week of the season for a lot of teams because if your team has had a bad season or maybe not the season you expected, maybe they're 5-5 or 4-6 or 7-4, but you're playing your rival this week, that can be the only game that matters the entire season, and that one game can salvage a terrible season. So it's all on the line. Rivalries. It's our culture's better than your culture. Our state's better than your state. A lot riding on this week, and a lot of teams are gonna want to stick it to the team they hate most. Now, to be fair, not every team is playing their biggest rival this week. Like Michigan State's biggest rival is Michigan. Well, Michigan plays Ohio State, so that's not an option. Texas's biggest rival is Oklahoma. Well, Oklahoma plays Oklahoma State, so um, it's it's whatever. But most of these games on the board are good rivalry games. We have 32 games on the board. I have expanded the board to allow for more games because these games are very important to a lot of people, and I wanted to get as many high-profile, important rivalry games on as possible. So I'm gonna show you guys the board. I'm actually, I gotta align it. Hold on. The board is not perfectly aligned, and it must be. It must be perfectly aligned. Must be perfectly aligned. There it is. I I had to fit BYU and USC on the side. I'm actually going to move my camera out of frame. You won't see me for the rest of the video. Here are the games. Here are the games. It is an amazing slate we have. Now, first off, I want to talk about how well I did last week. I went 23-1 last week. 24 games, only missed one game, and it was Wake Forest against Clemson. I picked Wake Forest, but every other game hit. Ohio State hit, Utah hit. I picked Utah to beat Oregon. That was a big one. But a lot of games had to hit, and all of them did besides Wake Forest. So very nice stuff there. The top 10, three top 10 teams lost. Oregon got thrashed by Utah. That wasn't even a football game. That was just the death of a team at the hands of the Mutts. The mighty Utah student section. Man, Utah did whatever they wanted that game. If Utah wanted to do it, they did it that game. Just bad stuff if you're an Oregon fan. You can say goodbye to their playoff hopes. They are not making the playoffs. Same thing with Michigan State. My goodness, that was horrible. Lost 56-7 to Ohio State, and the game was over in the first 5 minutes. Horrible stuff from Michigan State. They'll still settle for a pretty big bowl though. They'll make a big bowl, but no playoffs for Michigan State either. And then the aforementioned Wake Forest couldn't pull it out against Clemson, the ACC, once again falling back into irrelevancy. Now Wake Forest can clinch their division with a win this week against Boston College, so good for them. That's also something on the line. Divisions and spots in conference championship games. A lot of these games, most notably our featured games, Oklahoma State, and Michigan, Ohio State. It's going to be a spot in the championship game for that respective conference. So, a lot is riding on this weekend. Let's start with the Egg Bowl. On Thanksgiving night, we have Ole Miss and Mississippi State. I think Ole Miss is going to win this game, but it's going to be a fight. Mike Leach versus Lane Kiffin. Wow. Egg Bowl is going to be fun. Ole Miss definitely the better team, but it's at Mississippi State, and they bring a very good team to the table. A team that beat Texas A&M. I mean, they have some players, but I think Ole Miss wins a hard-fought game. Boise State and San Diego State. I've picked against San Diego State numerous times. I've picked against San Diego State. I'm not about to do it again. Boise State, I'm not about to do it again. Boise State, not the team they were. This should be an easy win for San Diego State. Eastern Michigan and Central Michigan, a big rivalry for the Mitten State. This is going to be an interesting game. Both these teams are, I think, around 6-5, 7-4 ish. Central Michigan's at home, and they're usually the better of these two. So I'm going to take Central Michigan. Iowa and Nebraska. Now, there is a possibility for the Big Ten West to end in a four-way tie. Here's what each team needs to happen to make the Big Ten championship game. Iowa needs a win and a Wisconsin loss. Wisconsin just needs to win, and they're in. Minnesota would need a win and an Iowa loss. And Purdue, now there's a way Purdue can be tied for the title, but here's the thing. If Purdue ends up being in the conversation, if it becomes a four-way tie, what would need to happen is Wisconsin and Iowa would need to lose, and Minnesota and Purdue would need to win. The team that would go to the Big Ten championship would be Minnesota because they would have the best record amongst the four teams because Minnesota would have beaten Wisconsin and Purdue, but not Iowa. Wisconsin, it's complicated, but you get what I'm nagging at. Nebraska is actually favored on the FPI, and here's what's going to happen. You've seen this movie 10 times before. Nebraska's going to hang around. Scott Frost is going to act like he's not getting fired at the end of the year. And they'll hang around, but Iowa will squeak one out at the end. And that's what I think will end up happening. Scott Frost should not have a job at the end of this season. I'd be surprised if he does. Cincinnati and East Carolina. Now, Cincinnati is coming off a huge win against SMU. Not only did they beat SMU, an 8-2 SMU team, a good SMU team, they didn't just beat them. No. They pillaged their cities and salted the land so nothing could grow again. That's how badly they beat SMU that game. What was it, like 48-0 at one point? Pulled the starters, let SMU get some pity touchdowns. Here's why I'm worried for their game against East Carolina. East Carolina is not a bad team. They're 7-4. They hung with South Carolina, lost at the last second. I maybe think, well, South Carolina's not that great. South Carolina's going to a bowl game out of the SEC, so they're clearly not that bad of a team. And they get them at home, and it's a Friday game. These weird little Friday games where you got to travel, and it's a short week, and these weird little Friday games on the road, off of a big win. Could there be a hangover? I'm telling you, I'm worried for Cincinnati this game. I'm really worried for Cincinnati. But what I think will end up happening is they'll do what they did in the middle of the season. They'll find a way to squeak it out closer than they should. But so with Cincinnati being ranked number 4 in the most recent college football playoff rankings, I think they're safely in the playoffs as long as they win out. Even if Alabama beats Georgia, I think they'll still find themselves in the playoff. And there could be a path if they were to lose this game. Now, believe me, they don't want to lose this game, but who would get in? One loss Cincinnati or one loss Notre Dame? Maybe the team that won that earlier season matchup, but Cincinnati should not be worried about that. They just got to go out and win. Missouri and Arkansas. Missouri is not that great of a team. Arkansas, they almost beat Alabama, just didn't have enough. I'm going to take them. South Florida and I didn't mean to scroll. South Florida and Central Florida. This would be a good game. I'll take UCF, though. South Florida is they're just not that great of a team. I'll take UCF. Utah against a lackluster Colorado team. I'll take Utah. Man, they looked good. Are they the best team in the Pac-12? It looks like it. They sure look like it. I'll take them over Colorado. That should be an easy win. North Carolina and NC State. NC State favored at home, but I like North Carolina. I've been high on North Carolina all year, even though they really haven't lived up to any of my expectations. But I think that they're going to get a win over their rivals at NC State. I'm not a big NC State rider. I think North Carolina, with more talent, will pull away and win a great game. This will be close and competitive. The Apple Cup between Washington State and Washington. Now, I would take Washington. Washington has owned this rivalry recently. This time, Washington State had a chance to make the playoff. They were like 9-1, and they're like, hey, if they went out, they can make the playoff. And it was snowing, and Washington came to town, and they just beat the brakes off of them. So I don't know about this game. It'll be close though. It'll be a good game. But I guess Washington, they've been a disaster this year. They lost to Oregon when they snapped it over the guy's head. They lost to Montana. They just fired their coach after what 1 year because he like punched a player or something. I'm taking Washington State. Georgia and Georgia Tech, the battle of clean old-fashioned hate is what this rivalry is called. This is going to be a murder of holy proportions. Um, I, I, I'm scared for Georgia Tech and Jeff Collins. This is going to be bad. It's going to be really. They just lost to Notre Dame 55-0. What's the best team in the country going to do to you? I'm sorry, Georgia Tech. You're in for a long afternoon. I'll take the dogs. Wake Forest at Boston College. I'll take Wake. I think they're gonna win with the division on the line. Boston College is they're all right, but I think Wake Forest is better. Texas Tech at Baylor. Now Baylor, in order to make the Big 12 championship game, they need to win, and they need Oklahoma State to beat Oklahoma. Because they'd have the same record as Oklahoma, but they would hold the tiebreaker since they beat Oklahoma earlier in the year. So they need the Cowboys to do their part in Bedlam to make it make it there. Oklahoma State has already secured their spot in the Big 12 championship for the first time ever, which kind of surprises me that they've never made it before. It's been Oklahoma, and then either TCU, Texas, or Baylor. It's Oklahoma State's turn to make the Big 12 championship. But I think Baylor will take care of business against a lackluster Texas Tech team. They're not great, so I'll take Baylor. Texas Tech got shut out by Oklahoma State. Florida and Florida State. The battle for bowl eligibility is what this rivalry is called. My goodness. When Florida started the year, 4-1, and Florida State was middling along at 0-4 and losing to Jacksonville State. And Syracuse. Who would have thought that these teams would be battling for a bowl matchup? Hard to believe, but it's here. Now, I think that it's interesting. Florida just fired Dan Mullen, and they're just all in disarray. They don't know what they're doing. And Florida State, after their dreadful start, they've kind of found themselves in a bit of a groove. They've been winning some games. Who'd they beat last? They beat Miami. That's a big game always for Florida State. So Florida State's trending in the right direction. Florida's trending in the wrong direction. This is a big game, honestly, for in-state recruiting. Because think about this: all of the Florida teams are bad. Miami's bad. Florida State's bad. Florida's bad. UCF, they're not what they were. South Florida, bad. FAU, bad. FIU, bad. This is a big game for recruiting, I think. And I think Florida State's going to win it. Florida is not in a good spot right now. Taking FSU. Utse still getting disrespected by the playoff committee. They're somehow ranked 22. They're undefeated. Good win against BYU. Not BYU, UAB. Against UAB this past week. I'm going to take them over North Texas. I think they're going to be one of 3 teams to finish the regular season undefeated. Their Roadrunners are looking really good. They do got to go on the road, but North Texas is not very good. They're like 3-8. I'll take Utse. Now, for the longest time, I've been saying Auburn's going to beat Alabama. Auburn, Iron Bowl, featured game potential. Oh my goodness! Look at Auburn. They're gonna run in there and beat a lackluster Alabama team. And then they lost. Who did Auburn lose to? Then they lost. Hold on. Who's Auburn? They've lost so many games I can't even remember. Jeez, Auburn. God, most inconsistent team in college football history. The Auburn Tigers. I'm like, yeah, they're gonna win. And then they lost to Texas A&M. And then they lost to Mississippi State. And then they lost to South Carolina. I mean, they've lost 3 in a row. How are they going to beat the number 3 team in the country? Ohio State passed them in the rankings. I just don't see how Alabama's going to lose. I think Auburn will hang around. What's the spread for this game? Let's see what the spread for this game is set at. Alabama 19.5. Auburn covers, but they're not going to have enough to win the game. Give me the Tide. And plus, I thought this game could have been for who clinches the West, but Auburn losing, Alabama took care of that. They've already clinched the West. Oregon State and Oregon, the Civil War between two Oregon teams. Now, a spot in the Pac-12 championship game is on the line here. Think about this. Oregon could have clinched a spot in the Pac-12 championship game with a win last week against Utah. They did not win against Utah. Now they're sitting at 6-2, and Oregon State is sitting at 5-3, and so is Washington State. If Washington State beats Washington, and Oregon State finds a way to pull the upset against Oregon, all three of those teams would be sitting at 6-3 in the Pac-12. And Oregon State would have beaten Oregon but lost to Washington State. Washington State would have beaten Oregon State but lost to Oregon, and Oregon would have beaten Washington State but lost to Oregon. So I don't know who would make it out of those three teams. I think Oregon State would. So this is a must-win game for both teams if they want to win their conference. How? Just how is Oregon going to go from we can make the college football playoff and we're riding high and we got this, guys, watch out, here come the Ducks, to we just got our ass whooped by Utah, and now we got to turn around and play our rivals when we're demoralized and all of our playoff hopes are gone? I don't think Oregon's going to handle it well. I really don't. They're playing a good 7-4 Oregon State team. I mean, they've had some questionable losses to Cal and Colorado, but they just beat Stanford and Arizona State. Their defense has looked good in both games, only giving up 14 points and 10 points. I think Oregon State's going to come in motivated for a big game against their rival, and I think they're going to win. Give me Oregon State. That's your upset special of the week. Is Oregon State. Penn State, Michigan State, I think a close. Somehow Penn State's favored in this game. That doesn't make any sense to me. How Penn State would be. Penn State's favored by 1. I think Michigan State's the better team, and they're at home. I know they're a close game, but I think Kenneth Walker will find. Or is he hurt? Is Kenneth Walker hurt? I can't. He left the game for a little bit. I don't know. I think Michigan State will be fine. They should win. Western Kentucky and Marshall. Now this is a rivalry game to some extent. Rivalry between Western Kentucky and Marshall, but these teams aren't going to play now that Western Kentucky is moving to the MAC. So kind of sad. Grant Wells against Bailey Zapp. Bailey Zapp for Heisman, by the way. He leads the nation in passing yards. And Grant Wells, not that bad of a quarterback either. I'm going to take Western Kentucky. I think their offense is really good. They've played some good games. It's going to be a great, close, competitive game between these two teams. I think Western Kentucky squeaks it out. Indiana. Man, I cannot believe I had this team in my top 10. Top 10 preseason, and here's what I said. I said they're going to go 1-2 to start the season. They're going to lose to Iowa and Cincinnati. And then they're going to run the table and make the Big Ten championship. Well, they started off 1-2, right? They beat Western Kentucky to go to 2-2. And they haven't won since. They are 2-9. They are horrible. They are so bad. My God, they're horrible. Are they going to get up? They'll get up for this game against Purdue. I mean, if they win this game, it's a successful season. That's how much these teams don't like each other. But I think Purdue's going to win. Indiana's just not going to be able to compete. Sorry. I just don't see it happening. 2-10 for a team that I had in my preseason top 10. How the mighty have fallen. Vanderbilt and Tennessee. Man, Vandy. I don't know what to think of you guys. You guys are just not very good, I guess. Tennessee's going to eat you alive. Tennessee's not the best team in the world, but good enough to beat you. Virginia Tech and Virginia. Now, I didn't really know who to pick in this game. I kind of went back and forth for a little bit. Virginia is a 7-point favorite. And they're at home. But Virginia Tech, they're 5-6. Okay, Virginia's 6-5. This game obviously means a lot to them, and if they win, they go to a bowl. So they got a little extra to play for this game. This is another upset I'm going to take. Give me Tech. I think they find a way to pull it out. I don't know how, but by some grace of God, I think Virginia Tech's going to pull this one out. Wisconsin and Minnesota now. A win for Wisconsin, and they're in the Big Ten championship game. But a loss, that would open the door for Minnesota or Iowa. Now, this game's at Minnesota. That's a big advantage for the Gophers. Passionate home crowd they have there. Wisconsin is a 7-point road favorite. Minnesota played Ohio State tough at home. First game of the season, though, so judge that with a grain of salt. I think this is going to be a really good game. I think it will be. Good game coming between Minnesota and Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin squeaks it out, though. Graham Mertz, 9 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, but I think they're going to be able to run the ball a lot with Braylon Allen. And I just don't think Minnesota's going to be able to do enough on offense. Man, they were so good that one year with Tanner Morgan and Rashad Bateman and that Ibrahim guy, but Ibrahim's been hurt for a while, and I just don't think Minnesota's going to have enough. Louisiana Monroe and Louisiana Lafayette. Now, who do you think's going to win this game? One team is 10-1. One of these teams is 10-1 and should be ranked. I think they are ranked in the AP poll. Louisiana Lafayette, and they've won 10 in a row. Who's been that team or Louisiana Monroe, who is 4-7 and got blown out by Georgia State earlier this year. Hey, they only lost by 13 to LSU, Louisiana Monroe. But LSU's not very good. They're not even, I don't know. Louisiana Lafayette's going to win and win big. Arizona State and Arizona. I think you know who's going to win this one. Arizona, they're just, Arizona, they try really hard, but they just don't have what it takes to win this game. I don't think. Arizona State's a 20-point favorite against a 1-10 Arizona. And they're lucky to even have that one win. I'm going to take Arizona State big. A&M and LSU, like I just said, LSU not a very good team. Give me Texas A&M, should be pretty easy. I almost said Louisiana. Louisville and Kentucky. Big rivalry for the Bluegrass State. What is the spread for this game? Let's take a look. The spread is Louisville by 3. I don't really get that. Kentucky, I think, is the better team. They were ranked really highly this season. They were ranked up 11 when they played Georgia. They've fallen on some hard times, but they just beat Vandy and New Mexico State to get their confidence up. I think they're the better team. I think they're going to win. Clemson and South Carolina, very bitter rivalry between these two teams. Now, you look at this game, start of the season, schedule comes out, South Carolina plays Clemson every year. You're thinking that's going to be a blowout. Well, Clemson is not the top 5 team everyone thought they were, and South Carolina isn't the dumpster fire everyone thought they were. So, this could be a competitive game. Clemson is ranked again. They're 23. What are they ranked for the first time since like week 2? South Carolina's at home. They might hang around in this game. Clemson's still an 11.5-point favorite, though. And I think they're still substantially better than South Carolina. So, still going to take Clemson. Notre Dame and Stanford. Oh, hold on. This is backwards. Hold on. I don't think Stanford's going to blow out Notre Dame. I'm sorry. I would love to see that, but I don't think it'll happen. I'm going to take Notre Dame. They need to win this game if they want to make the playoffs. Stanford won't make it easy on them. They upset Oregon earlier this year. They have the potential. But then again, they are 3-8. So, I don't know. Notre Dame's favored by 19. They should cover. Stanford's not a good team. They're going to be playing for some playoff hopes. Will they get in the playoffs? Well, it's hard to say. Right now, of the top 4, we know what I think it'll come down to is Oklahoma State or Notre Dame. And I don't know who they take in that situation, but Notre Dame's going to have to win. I think they do. BYU and USC. BYU's a 7-point road favorite, and I think they'll cover that. They've been scoring. My goodness, BYU can score. They score a lot of points. And USC, they fired their coach, and they don't know what they're doing. So I'm going to take BYU big in this game. Big. I almost had BYU in the top 10. Speaking of the top 10, I didn't really talk about it. Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio. So I think the top 2, I'm keeping it, Georgia and Cincinnati. They're undefeated, and they have wins against teams currently in the top 10. Ohio State at 3, Bama at 4. I think Ohio State's shown me a lot more than Bama has. Michigan right there at 5. Oklahoma State at 6, Notre Dame at 7. Those teams pretty much just moved up from where they were last week. Baylor and Oklahoma State enter the top 10. Now, I have Oklahoma ahead of Baylor. I know Baylor beat Oklahoma, but Baylor also lost to Oklahoma State and TCU. Oklahoma blew out TCU, but those two could be flip-flop. But I kept Oregon at 10. I mean, they still have that win against Ohio State. That's really the only thing saving them from not being a top 10. On the cusp was Ole Miss, BYU, Michigan State. I thought maybe I could keep them in. Yeah, so those are the teams on the outside looking in of the top 10. Now, on the top 10 right now, we know two of these teams are going to lose. Either Ohio State or Michigan has to lose, and either Oklahoma State or Oklahoma has to lose. So there will be turnover in the top 10, and it all comes down to the featured games. We've got Bedlam and The Game. These are two bitter rivalries that both have a lot riding on them this year. Let's start with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. How long is this video? I feel like this video is way too long. 26 minutes. I've had longer videos. Now, what's on the line for both teams? Well, both of these teams are in a situation where if they win, they're in the Big 12. Actually, no. Oklahoma State's already in the Big 12 championship, but you know they want to beat Oklahoma. Oklahoma needs to win to get in the Big 12. If they win, they're in the Big 12 championship and they'll rematch Oklahoma State. If Oklahoma State wins, well, then it's Baylor meeting them in the Big 12 championship. Now, this game's at in Stillwater at whatever Oklahoma State Stadium is called. And it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a fight. Now, in the preseason, I said Oklahoma would go 11-1, and they'd lose on the road to Oklahoma State. So, I kind of feel now, who's going to start at quarterback for Oklahoma? Because, I mean, who started their last game? Hold on. Who started against Iowa? Caleb Williams started against Iowa State. 8 of 18, 87 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Now, he didn't run the ball really well, but that's not great. Here's my thing. If you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any. You need to find consistency with the quarterback position. Oklahoma doesn't have that. Oklahoma State, they do have a good quarterback. Spencer Sanders, on the year, he's 3 yards short of 2,000. He has 15 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. He hasn't been a real, elite game-changing quarterback, but he's gotten it done when he needs to. They have a good running back, Jalen Warren, over 1,000 yards on the season, and Tay Martin's a great receiver for them. Now, let's see. Here's where Oklahoma State shines, and here's why I think they will win the game. Here's why I think they'll win the game. Their defense has really impressed since they lost to Iowa State, which is their only loss in the year. They have only given up 2 touchdowns, and one of those was a fumble recovery. So they've given up 1 offensive touchdown. And that was in their 63-17 point win over TCU. They only gave up 3 points to Kansas, 3 points to West Virginia, only 10 on defense to TCU, and no points at all last week to Texas Tech. They're going to win this game with their defense, and I think they're going to manage the clock well, and I don't think Oklahoma's going to really get anything going on offense. That's exactly what Baylor did. They didn't suffocate it with offense. They scored when they needed to, and they just couldn't get anything going on offense. I think Oklahoma State's going to use the same formula, and I think they're going to win. Now we have the one everyone's been waiting for, the game of the century, or it has that type of vibe surrounding it. Ohio State and Michigan. It's all on the line for both of these teams. A win, and you're in the Big Ten championship, and if you win that Big Ten championship, you're going to the playoff. If you lose, tough, we'll see you next year. It's all getting laid on the line here in Ann Arbor. And speaking of which, the fact that it's in Ann Arbor is a big advantage for Michigan. Ohio State, they will play. Now, Ohio State doesn't have that home crowd that's loud all the time. When they get on a roll, it's hard to play there. That's what Michigan State did. Ohio State got on a roll early, and they just never recovered. They don't have that. Michigan's at home. Now, here's the fatal flaw Michigan State had. They did not run the ball. Ohio State can score at will. C.J. Stroud, who, by the way, C.J. Stroud's winning the Heisman. C.J. Stroud stole the Heisman from Kenneth Walker that game. And it makes me sad to say, but Kenneth Walker, I don't think is going to win the Heisman. It's going to be C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud is who I would vote for right now, and I think he's the leader. Anyway, but Ohio State can score at will. What you have to do, if you're Michigan, is just keep C.J. Stroud, Olave, the Jigba Smith, and Garrett Wilson. You have to keep them on the sidelines, which means you have to run the ball, control the clock, and get timely stops on third down. Against Michigan State, they did not get timely stops on third down. They let Michigan State crawl all the way back and end up winning that game. They're going to need to find a way to get off the field on third down and run the ball. I think what they can do is they have the luxury of improving on what Michigan State did. They saw them just not give the ball to Kenneth Walker. Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins, Hassan Haskins isn't a 1,000-yard rusher. I don't know about Corum. They're going to need to control the ball and keep it out of Ohio State's hands. I think they'll be able to do that for a little bit. Here's the thing. People have asked me who am I going to root for in this game. Now, Michigan's my least favorite team in all of sports. Not all sports, but all of college sports. I hate Michigan, but I'm so sick of seeing Ohio State win all the time. I would like to see Michigan win this game. Can John Harbaugh beat Ohio State, though? They said throughout the season he introduced his Beat Ohio drill, and what are you doing to beat Ohio State today? Is it going to work? I think Michigan puts up a valiant effort. I think they walk into Ann Arbor, and I think they take a lead early, but Ohio State just becomes too overwhelming in the end, and they end up falling. I'm going to take Michigan in a good game. But those are my picks. Do you like them? Great. If you don't like them, let me know why in the comments below. I will see you I'm streaming later tonight for Gonzaga UCLA. That'll be a fun game. But I will see you guys for some college football this week. It's the biggest week of the year, biggest game of the year, Ohio State, Michigan. I'll see you there. I will see you there.